Miguel Iterade back here on the MMA Museum podcast, as always, trying to document history. And we have an old friend, Monte Cox, has joined us. Monte, how are you?
Doing well, doing well.
Monte sort of needs no introduction, but then all of a sudden, you got to add to this introduction: manager, promoter, and now author.
I mean, can you believe it? I've got a show going on August 12th in Hannibal, Missouri. And I thought I should get in the ring and say, now Hannibal has seen Mark Twain and Monte Cox. So,
Yeah.
couple of big time authors here. So
for sure. But no, I think that when I heard that you were going to sit down and write a book, and it's been a couple years process, and that really makes me feel good about it, actually, because it would take a couple years, I think. I don't think you could do this in 3 months and really do justice to all your history and everything you've done in the sport from the 90s, even, through now. And I'm sure you'll get stuck in the 90s and the early 2000s, for stories and things like that. But this is going to be great. This is going to be great reading for anybody who cares about MMA because of the depth,
Yeah, it's telling stuff. Even the people who were there, even the people who say, "Oh, I'm an MMA fan. I know everything." There's going to be things in here that a Jens Pulver, a Rich Franklin would go, "That's what happened." And there's a lot of things in there that they didn't understand. I didn't share with the fighters what my side was doing, fighting with Dana and fighting with other people and attorney generals and all the things that went into trying to put a show on and such. So this tells a lot of inside things, things that make people laugh. There's a part in the book where I'm struggling to sell tickets, and I picketed my own event in Michigan. I made up the signs myself. I called the TV stations, the radio stations, and said, "Hey, we don't need this kind of stuff in Battle Creek," and had people picketed. And the next day, I mean, everyone called me, got all kinds of publicity, and we did 3,500 people. But there are things like that are just, to me, it's just what you got to do for the show.
Yeah, no, that's something you're never going to get credit for unless you kind of tell the story. I don't even consider it bragging. You know what I mean? Because stuff like that actually did happen a lot. And you were a trend-setting promoter. It's not like your shows were a joke or anything like that. Even when you started, you were one of the more serious guys starting, for example, things like, we're not going to have judges fight to a draw. That was a keynote of the early Monte Cox show. So that way, on a promotional end, kept it kind of easy for you, maybe a little less pay with the win-loss bonuses and stuff. So you could just see all the management that goes into it, So yeah. I think it'll be great insights.
Well, what you're talking about as a promoter, I thought, I've got all these great guys. How am I going to get people to come into their hometown and fight these guys? And even if they do great, how could they win a decision, over Tim Sylvia in his hometown? So I just took that out of it. And it's like, look, if someone doesn't sub somebody, then we'll call it a draw. And you look at my guys, they have those great records, 53, 8, and 5. It's like, why do all your guys have five draws? And that's why.
And then for example, the Extreme Challenge was already a Midwest brand as you built it up. And then you do something spectacular and historic, like go in 98. I think that Utah show was actually one of those that was groundbreaking. It was probably, the biggest show of those 6 months, including UFC,
Yeah. There was a time there, I wrote about it in the book, where for about a year, I consistently outdrew the UFC. They were drawing 1,500, 2,500 people, I was drawing, my first show was 8,000. I had a 7,000, a couple 6,000s, I did a show in Des Moines with 3,500 people, and I go, I'm never coming back to this crap hole again. 3,500, it's not
Yeah.
worth my time. Now I'm in Detroit, I'd crawl there, for
Yeah.
3,500 people. But that's true. I took some chances, and you kind of, at that point, I started to feel untouchable. I mean, like, no matter where I went, it was successful. People really wanted to see this sport, and they wanted to see it live, and that was I bought, back then radio was a big deal. And so I buy radio that says every commercial, you've seen it on pay-per-view, now see it live. And man, that people were like, I got to see this. And they would come from a state or two away, because the UFC was only doing 4 shows a year, and you never knew where. And they just wanted to see it. And so no matter where I went, even Mormon country, I was able to draw whatever 5,000-6,000 people.
Yeah.
You know,
I remember you telling the story that you had hooked up with a radio station, and
Yeah.
that it is a Mormon country, and as the state, has that reputation. But there was a nice counterculture there in the '90s, and you hooked up with the right radio station.
Yeah.
And talk about what happened when they informed you about ticket sales and what was going on.
They were Mick and Alan. They're still there, and they were the guys that would do the crazy things, the Bob and Toms. They would. When I first got there, they had put out 3 big billboards of just a girl's chest, and it would say Mick and Alan, just a couple of boobs, and they knew they wouldn't last. So the deal was, people would call in and bet on how many days before the city got them to take them all down. Things like that. So
Yeah.
I went to them and I said, look, I got an idea. I've never done this before. I just want you to say, for a month, I can't believe this is coming to Salt Lake City. Never thought we'd get it. I can't tell you what it is, but wait till you find out. And they just killed it. Everyone's, come on, you got to let us know. People are guessing. They're giving away prizes to guess what it is. And then a month out, I show up and we announce, on a Friday, we announced the Extreme Challenge cage fighting is coming. And we were talking about tables, and they're like, you mean I can get, they were fantastic. They're like, you mean I can get a table of 10, all my friends can sit together with our beer and everything and watch the show together? And I go, yeah. And he goes, you got to get me one. And Mick would go, you got to get me one. So the next day, we don't know. It's Saturday now. And we saw the guy from the venue, the ticket manager, and he comes up and he says, never done MMA before, but I've done just concerts. But is 3,500, would that be, is that a good number? And I said, if I drew 3,500 here, I would probably come back, but I would be disappointed. And he goes, no. He goes, I mean, yesterday we sold 3,500 tickets yesterday. I had never sold anything near that. A good first day would be 300.
Yeah.
We did 3,500 tickets. I've never done that trick again. I mean, it was a one-time deal. And then we lucked out. I got so much money because I'm way ahead that we look up, and Utah is playing BYU in football the afternoon of our show. So I hired a plane to go back and forth 4 times with a big streamer saying cage fighting tonight at the E Center. And man, that we had a great walk up. I don't know how much that helped, but it was, $400 to show 60,000 people,
Yeah.
No,
and the thing
time.
is, the thing about it is that I think that you deserve credit for that at a different level, like on a business type of level and stuff, because like you said, you're taking a little risk going to a state where it's not your state. I mean, I think you've done some promotion of boxing and things like that in the Illinois area before, so it wasn't that strange to you. But Utah, you don't know what you're heading into, and
I'd never even been there.
And wow. And here's the thing too, though. Willing to take a risk, because now if somebody tells you 3,500 tickets, you've got some money in there. a lot of people would be like, yeah, why fly the plane? Why blow the $400? I already did good and stuff like that, but why not? You know what I mean? And that's, I think my hat's off to you, because most promoters at that time would have fallen back to the like, we already did great.
Oh yeah, no, I'm the opposite. I mean, once I'm playing with their money, like it's like going to a casino. Once you get way ahead, I'm more willing to play $200 hands of blackjack instead of 25, because it's their money. But you're never going to make it big if you don't take a chance on something. So that I probably could have gotten 5,000 people, but I think I ended up between 6 and 7 by doing the extra things. Heck, when I found out that it was going that good, I started working twice as hard. I went out there more than a week ahead of time and just kept pushing. I mean, I thought I had something.
Yeah, no, and for certain, you delivered a historic show back then too.
It was a great show. It really
first
was.
of all, here's one of those things. Was it like 20 fights? How many?
16.
Yeah.
Because I had one more fight in the cage than I did in the stands. True, it's true. It was bad in the stands.
Yeah. About that, what do you think? It was just drunk people?
Yeah, and just young kids. I did a $25 ticket for the upper bowl. I thought I'd pick up some of the kids that couldn't afford more. And we had a lot of $25 tickets. Again, I'd say out of the 15 fights, probably 13 were up there.
Oh wow!
And my old mentor, Fred Burns, used to say, when there's a fight in the stands, get a fight in the ring as fast as you can. Make the people choose. He goes, and normally the fight in the cage will be better, the ring will be better. So everyone will kind of look away and it fizzles. He goes, if you just let it go, everyone starts looking and it grows into something big. So I've always remembered, Fred saying, get one going.
Yeah, no, was that your mentor, you said?
Oh yeah, Fred Burns.
Those old school guys always have wisdom like that. It reminds me of there's a comedian that has a great saying that he says, no one ever left a fist fight to go see the band play. Similar theory where it's like get people's attention.
Yeah, Fred was from Indianapolis, still alive, 83 years old. He managed had promoted people like Marvin Johnson and Harold Brazier and guys like that, but he put on 40 shows a year for 50 years. I mean, he's in all the Hall of Fames, everything. But he would go out, and if he made 1,500 on a show, he was tickled to death, and stuff. And we did a few shows together where we made a lot of money, and I'd have to drag him kicking and screaming. He just wouldn't want to, just didn't want to lose a nickel. And so we did a couple shows that went really big, 6,000 people for a Macho Camacho show. That because he fought it and didn't want to do it, the building in the end is like, listen, we'll throw 2,500 in, and because he did it, we ended up better, but he almost cost us the whole thing. And to this day, he'll say, he goes, biggest shows I've ever had, Monte Cox. That guy was dangerous.
Yeah, no, for sure. So before we head off into the international stuff that you became involved with and maybe reminisce some interesting stuff there, let's talk about that first tier of champions that you had. So Jens, Hughes, Sylvia, Franklin, and Monet. There's one I'm missing in there somewhere.
Shirk.
Okay, so yeah, talk about that, because that's the high point. I recently told the story. You were Dana's nemesis for a long time, and I recently told a story about an interaction you had with Joe Silva, the matchmaker, and where I think you were, you're playing the Monty manager role, which you always, had your hat on. And you told him, hey, I might take my guys off this card. And Dana overheard it and didn't like. Why don't you share that story for the people. I know you've told it before, but I think it sets you up in those early days. Also, how powerful you were with the champions, 5 champions.
Well, I got to the point around UFC 30 in that neighborhood. I was feeling my oats. I was doing pretty well. I had, I had UFCs with 8 fights, and I had 6 of my guys in, and I had 4 of the 5 UFC champs, and I had my weekly shows going good. I had my shows going good. I started doing management, like I said, out of just trying to get Pat a fight. I just wanted to be a promoter. And in the end, management turned out to be the biggest part of what I did. But I mean, so I'm feeling myself. We're doing a show in Cedar Rapids, and Joe Silva comes up and gives me. We tease each other all the time. I love the guy. I mean, he and I just, if it wasn't for him, I might not have got anyone in the show because Dana and I didn't get along. Mm-hmm. And it all started. This was when the Nevada Athletic Commission came to the show to see about sanctioning MMA. And so they're all there. Dana's there, Lorenzo's there. And Joe comes up to me and says something about, you do this and I'll do this. And I go, really? I go, you have 8 fights. I have 8 guys on the card. I go, what would happen if my guys all got sick tonight? And he goes, yeah, I didn't really think about that. And I just laughed and we walked away. And then he tells me Dana overheard it, and came up and he goes, who's that guy? And he goes, that's Monte Cox. And he has a lot of the fighters. And he goes, if we take this over, we can never let one guy have that kind of power. And that brought on the rule Dana invented of no more than 2 fighters per weight class per manager. Well, that affected exactly one guy, me.
Yeah.
There was nobody else. So for me, it really hurt me at 170. I had Pat already in, I had Laverne Clark in, and I had Matt Hughes. And I had sitting on the sideline Sean Shirk, who was like 20-1. And Jason I had Black. Jason Black, who was 19-0, and I couldn't get him in. And Dana would come through the locker rooms and say, guys, get a different manager and I'll get you in and stuff like that. And it's like, hey, thanks a lot, buddy. Thanks, Dana. And it was just one of those things where we could have never been friends, which it just couldn't work. We're just so different. And I'm fighting for the fighter. I'm trying to get fighters, an extra $500 because I see them. I'm going to the gym all the time. I see where they live and how they struggle. So I'm fighting for a little more money. And Dana was, he fought he didn't want to pay $500 more, but he could shift and he could take a bunch of fighters to a strip club and blow 10 grand. Yeah. But he wasn't going to give this guy $500, and I get it. They're different funds, different. That's probably, I'm sure the 10 grand was his money, but, and so I'm not saying that was wrong. It's just, to me, as a guy fighting for these guys, it was kind of tough, and I think at the time Dana needed to put his foot down a little on me to make sure that, I realized that without the show, I don't have anywhere to put all these guys.
Yeah, let's talk about Joe Silva, because when you narrow it down, and Joe is a guy I think who should get more credit than he's ever going to get. And he probably left the UFC with no compete, no talk clause, because I haven't seen him do any interviews or anything. Maybe he just doesn't want to, but I'm pretty sure that's a contract.
I don't think so. I really don't. I think Joe was he had worked his butt off. He had traveled all over the world and coach. He had not been paid a great amount of money. He was frustrated and like you get when dealing with fighters. And when he got his payoff, when they sold, he was gone. And he didn't want to, the rest of his life was him, his wife, his daughter, and that it just walked away from everyone. you
That's
know,
good.
and
Good for him to be able to do it, and to that makes me feel good. Hopefully,
yeah,
he's that way.
it was. I know it wasn't a no compete because Dana, if I was, this is what I was told. Dana thought he would stick around and help out and stuff. And there was, in fact, he told me there was nothing in his deal to make him stay. So the minute he said, the minute it got into my bank account, his little percentage, when you're talking 4 billion, turns out to be a hell of a little number, and he didn't have to work anymore, and he was gone. So
That,
I mean, it all worked out for him.
yeah, from a guy, he started out basically as a volunteer intern kind of thing. When Art Davie left the UFC, Meyerowitz didn't feel he was ready for the job. He brought in Peretti instead of Joe, who was sort of sitting there, and he was probably the second best choice, behind Peretti. I think Peretti is the best at that, but
at that time he had the experience.
But Joe could have done it. He did it later. But the reason he's interesting too is you got a guy who came up that way, and he's the highest ranking SEG official that actually transitioned and went on with the company, because none of the other people that maybe McCarthy, but I don't think the ref is on the same measure as the matchmaker,
Yeah.
So it's like, and McCarthy didn't last long. Elaine didn't last long, Meyerowitz was gone. I mean, he may have consulted for a little bit, but Joe was the only person transitioning all of that. So he carried a lot of pressure because I can tell you, Dana was there to cut throats, and he, like for example, with yourself, he helped a lot of people communicate with that monster, behind the curtain.
Yeah. I mean, Joe had a job to do, and it's a much tougher job than most people can fathom. It's like anyone can sit there and say, here's my 7 fights I'd put on the next card. This guy against this guy, and you just pick them out. And Joe would say that's great, except this guy's hurt. That guy won't fight that guy. They're on the same team. These are Brazilians. They won't fight each other. This guy has to fight 2 months later contractually. These guys, these 5 guys you didn't mention, all have to be on this card because contractually they're on the last fight of their deal. If we don't put them on this card, we got to pay them for not fighting. And there's so many things that, and I don't even know all of them, but I know when he and I would talk, he goes, they don't understand. He goes, the first thing you do, you sit down and you got a card coming up, and you put all the guys on that got to be on, and got to be, and then you pick out of those. Do I have a main and a co-main? If not, that's what I go next, and then you start looking at, okay, who hasn't had a fight? Okay, this guy, we don't have to get him a fight right now, but if we don't, he's going to have to go back to back over here because we're going to run out of time. I mean, I used to make fun of him. I'd say, I'd say, I'm a better matchmaker than you. I just am. I go, you get your stuff done by offering guys 20,000, 20,000, things like that. I mean, try getting the same fight for 500 and 500. Yep. But he also, as you get bigger, and I realize this in management, the demands are bigger. I don't want to fight that fight. This is the best fight for my career. Now it's all about me. It's not about UFC. It's about me. And, I mean, how many guys has the UFC built up, and when they get to the pinnacle, they walk or go somewhere else? I mean, how frustrating, and he had to deal with that kind of stuff.
And a boss that's unpredictable, you know what I mean? And it's like, and like you said, so now here's, Joe's got a certain amount of, but if he wants to give a guy a raise and Dana doesn't agree with it, how willing were they to just chop his legs off, because that makes it even harder. It's like, okay, this is what I'm going to try to do. I think I can get it approved. Yeah, and then you find out you didn't get it approved and you overstepped your bounds and opened your mouth. There could be so many complications, and it is about personal relationships, just dealing with it. And your word is your
Yeah.
bond. So, yeah,
And
I think
I don't think until the end, I really don't think Dana, I don't know about the Fertitas, but Dana, I don't think he appreciated what Joe did. I think because I know for a fact that Joe had gone to the boss and said, "Hey, I need a raise," and was told, "If you leave, I'll have 10 people at my door begging for that job tomorrow." And Joe needed the job, and so you can't. When a boss tells you that, you just go, "Thank you, see ya," because you don't want to lose it. But the reality was there'd be 10 guys, but all 10 together couldn't do what Joe did. And Joe was like an encyclopedia. He used to get so mad at the smaller managers who would call in, and with a guy that Joe knew. He goes, "I know that guy. He's this, he's that," and he goes, "Quit trying to polish a turd." He goes, "I know who the guy is. That's enough. Once I say that, walk away, because all I'm going to do now is start slamming you for how your guy doesn't deserve it." And Joe really appreciated preparation. If I'm going to talk to Joe about getting someone more money, I better be prepared. I better know why he needs more money. I need to say, my guy's now ranked 7th in the world. The guy in the 6th in the world is making this. The guy in 5th is making this. The guy behind him is here. I'm in the middle. My money has to fall in there somewhere. And you got to be ready to say, yeah, but he'll say that guy in front has done this and that, and beating that guy doesn't give you his glory. And I go, no, but it moves me up the ladder to, and we would go back and forth, but he appreciated that. And if you made your case, he was okay. Sometimes you just get shot down. And the other thing great with Joe was we never played games. If I wanted to get someone 50 and 50, I didn't start at 80 and 80 and let them whittle me down. We didn't do that garbage. Neither of us, honestly, neither had time. He'd say, "Okay, whatever. Lawler needs it. It's time for a new deal. What are you thinking?" And I never wanted to give away the money first, is one of my things. I go, "I'm not sure. What are you thinking, Joe?" He goes, "Well, what do you think he's worth?" I'm like, "I don't know. I'm not the guy paying or anything. So what are you offering me?" And eventually he would give a legitimate, nine times out of 10, a legitimate offer that was where I thought we should be. And if he did that, if it was within the what I was looking for, I took it.
Yeah.
I didn't feel as a manager I had to fight him to get, "Hey, he wanted to give you 70, but I got you 74."
Yeah.
I don't have time for that. We moved up significantly. That was good. If we were off on a couple of them. I won't mention names, but a couple. I go, "Joe, we're not in the same ballpark, dude." And it would take 4 months. We wouldn't, talk, and he'd come back with a little bit more or whatever. And I said, I feel very strongly this is where it is. And I would tell the fighter, "You're never going to be in a better position than you are right now. I don't want you to answer your phone. Don't talk to Dana. Don't talk to anybody. Let me handle it." And in the end, we got within 2-2 of what we wanted, and it was like a $50,000 jump. But
Yeah.
it was a key time, and if you don't take it then, you might never get that chance again. And that set the tone for that guy for the rest of his career. And I always thought I was good at that. I would make them mad at me. I would have Dana yell my name and cuss at me and that kind of stuff. But in the end, I mean, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. Oddly enough, I'm doing exactly. I think Dana was one of the worst managers, not worst, the most unpredictable managers there was. He'd shut down a whole UFC show if his guy didn't get his money, you know. But you turn it around and do the same to him, and Dana said one time on ESPN, I was the worst manager in the sport. You
Yeah.
know.
Yeah,
Come on, bottom three, but not the worst.
yeah, no, but Dana's a force to be reckoned with, and he was taking everybody on. I think that Joe and you are two of the people that really had the most success with him. If you're not on his side, you're on the outside. Talk about, and this I think was a knock on Joe too, because as the matchmaker, like when I work with Dan, in Florida, Dan, come pay time, Dan used to let me do my thing, hand out the envelopes and stuff like that. Matchmaking, it helped. It helped with the image and stuff like that. Sure. Why would Dana not give the locker room bonuses to Joe to handle? Why, obviously he was working on something bigger.
Well, I don't think Joe would want anything to do with it. I don't think bonus is not on the contract, and Dana, things are arbitrary. You don't know what he's going to do. And Joe definitely liked order. He liked to have it all written down in order, and we followed a path. And I don't think he would do that. I also don't think he wanted anyone knowing what he was paying. I mean, we had guys. I had guys get as much as a $500,000 bonus. I mean, they don't want anyone knowing that. Even though he trusts Joe, I don't think anyone, when those things happen, I don't think anybody knew. I mean, maybe the Fertittas, but there was a time there where Dana's running all this stuff, and you couldn't get a poster approved. They're waiting around. He's out of the country, and they got a poster that's due. They got to get this poster out. You cannot do it without Dana signing off. Back in the day, and this wasn't the day when you put it on a cell phone and click it to somebody.
Yeah.
A lot of this stuff, and it's part of the book. You say, I did 25 shows a year, and everyone says, but there are people that have done that. I go, without the internet and cell phones, where when I'm driving 5 hours to somewhere, I get no work done. It's not like today, and you don't show up and have an athletic commission go, hey, good to see you. Here's your contracts. Here's what you got to do. Here's the deal. Let me take care of your doctor and your judges and I mean, wow, nice. I didn't have that when I drive into a town for the first time. I would just drive into a town and look around.
No, for sure. Different time. Now, let's get back to so we've talked a little bit, and I think if you've never heard Monty and ourselves talk, and we've done a few of these, you get an idea for what Monty brings in terms of history and what you may find in this book, the full Monty. And Monty sat down here. Monty, I'm with the roster of guys that you've had, and I'm sure some of them. Is there one guy that you put in the book that you were like, wow, I forgot about that guy, or something, that's a little bit of a surprise that moved you again, or remind you're going down memory lane here. How to bring back memories.
Yeah, you're gonna get me all emotional with it, but it's Tom Sauer. I mean, I'm not gonna be able to talk about it. I'm not.
Okay.
I'm just not. It just I dedicated the book to him and to Eilers, but the Tom thing, I still can't shake it. I mean,
yeah, and we'll get moving on here so that we can get more into the book too. With Tom and Justin, neither of them are with us any longer. Both, tragedies, and Monty, dealt with them. I know Monty's told terrific stories about going cornering Tom in Holland by themselves, and they took family vacations together at that point. So I understand, and Tom is one of those guys that, man, everybody who fought him respects him, and he never got to that top shelf or anything like that. But anybody who fought him respects him, and he overcame
no matter what he called you.
Yeah, and that's he overcame Tourette's, which is something to do in an MMA career, which is something that I think is notable. I think that would hold a lot of people back. Yeah. So Tom is one of those guys. Justin is also one of those guys. How about a story that made you laugh?
Oh, I mean, the Laverne Clark stuff when you start writing it and just shaking your head that he was afraid of cats, especially black cats, because they were evil spirits, and they could read his mind, and I mean he fully believed this. It's not like he's trying to be funny. If he's walking and a cat jumps out, he's 40 feet away, man. He did not like cats, and he saw that movie. What was it called? Sleepwalkers.
Okay.
Where there's a part where the guy goes to the door and looks out, and there's 10,000 cats on their hind legs looking up, and of course it's done. It's done with cinematography stuff, but you can't convince Laverne. He said, "How you think they got all those cats to stand up?" That was a Stephen King story, Sleepwalkers or something. But yeah, he was something, and just such an incredible athlete. And he remember we're sitting in a rules meeting, and his first UFC, and he's looking around, and he Marie Smith comes down and goes, "You're new. What do you do?" He goes, "Same as you. I kills people." And Maurice goes, "One of them crazy motherfuckers." So he goes, I'll just keep walking, And then Laverne looks over and he goes to the guy next to me. He goes, "You wrestle?" And he goes, "Yeah." And he goes, "Me too." Looking around, and I go, that. Oh my God! Now I'm getting the game. That's our Olympic coach, Kevin Jackson. That's Kevin Jackson. He won a Olympic gold medal, and he goes, "Oh, no, he don't know anybody. Didn't know any, He would say, he'd look in a book and he'd say, "Is that one of them holds?" And Pat and I would go, "Stop talking." He didn't want anyone to know he didn't know any jujitsu at all. He could wrestle and punch, and that was a recipe to beat Brazilians.
Yeah, but the other thing, he had a mean streak once you got close the cage, and he came from, places in life that, this was still fun for him. It wasn't, it was lighter than his normal life. Why don't you tell the story about when he chopped his toes off?
Yeah, we kind of gave away the answer, but he called me one time and he says, "Monty, I'm going to wear shoes to fight Fabiano Iha this time." And I go, "No." I go, "He's a jiu-jitsu guy. You're not going to wear shoes. You're going to go for your legs." He goes, "Yeah, I am going to wear shoes." I go, "No." He goes, "You need to come to the gym." And I go down to the gym, and he's rolling around. And he clearly is wearing two different size shoes. One is like a 12 and the other is a 16. And so he goes, "Follow me." We go into the back, and he takes that big shoe off, and his toes are bloody pulps, all swollen, wrapped in toilet paper, bloody toilet paper. And we're like, "Oh my God." Matt Hughes comes in, a farmer, right, who's seen every kind of animal slaughter there is. When he starts taking that thing off, Matt goes, "I'm going to get sick," and turns and walks away. It was that bad. The blades had cut the tips of his toes, but it also at some point, what he was doing, he was mowing a lawn on a hill. So he was lowering it with a rope. And when he pulled it up, he slipped and his foot went under, and out the shoe comes parts of the whole beginning of his shoe goes shooting off. And he goes, "I knew my toes were in it." He goes, "I didn't want to look, but I knew it." And when his foot went under, it turned, and the blade split his big toe down the middle. And it went far enough down that it stopped the blade. Unfortunately, it didn't cut it, but his toe was the size of a potato. And the UFC was like 10 days, and I'm like, "Yeah, no, you're not fighting." "Oh, I'm fighting." He goes, "I'm just going to wear shoes."
Yeah. Now let me ask you, what was the medicals like that day? Because I mean, at this point, are you right? You're worried about your fighter. He's getting. Laverne's personal story. He probably needed the money too. So
for sure.
So that's the kind of thing where it's like now you're kind of like, all right, I'm going to help him pull this off. So what did you have to go through that day?
it's funny back then. The doctors and stuff it wasn't like now. You could get away with all kinds of stuff. They just wanted to look at you. Was your heartbeat okay? Was your blood pressure okay? Good to go. There wasn't any,
Never had to take your shoes off. Yeah.
It took us forever for Houston Alexander when they found out he gave away a liver, a kidney. I'm sorry, he gave away a kidney to his daughter. That was in New Jersey, and all of a sudden it's like, they go, Monty, he's only got one kidney. I go, he's only got one heart. What are you telling me? And he goes, I don't know if we can do this. And I go, he's done his whole career on this. And he goes, but if he gets hit in that, I go, if he gets hit in his heart, if he gets, these are the dangers. And they ended up letting him. This is as we're walking getting ready to go to the cage. We're going inside rooms and fighting, but that shows you before they never, and they wouldn't have caught that then if he wouldn't have he mentioned it, I think. They overheard somebody.
Yeah, it's an amazing thing. I interviewed Strasser recently, and he remembered a story from Levine's Georgia big show in Rome, Georgia, that you were at, and he said he was in the back, and Brad Kohler, a friend of ours, was getting all pumped up, and and Dave thinks he may have been taking caffeine pills and drinking Red Bulls and who knows what else he had going on, but he was hyped up. And he had high blood pressure. The doctors had read his high blood pressure, and a couple of doctors came in the back and said, we're going to have to take another reading because you're through the roof. And Kohler wouldn't let him do it. Kohler was bouncing up and down. He's already ready for the fight. And he just said, I'm fine, man. Get the hell out. Get away from me. Doctors kind of looked at each other, according to Strasser, and said, well, if we do it and something goes wrong, then, or it's too high, then we got to do something. So we better get out of here. And they just bailed. Unfortunately, Kohler got kicked in the face that day.
Ooh, that changed rules. That was a rule changer.
Yeah.
I mean, about everyone said, we can't let people punt guys on all fours. That was Babalu, wasn't it? Was
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That was bad. But yeah, that was those shows were they had so many good fighters and stuff like that, that I helped them on that. I think it was that show. They were doing the pay-per-view on that one. I think that's the first one they did pay-per-view. It was either that one or wasn't that Going Platinum or something? I think that was the name of it. But they and I came out and I went to Dan and I go, Dan, didn't you tell me that you bought time until midnight? And at that point it went off. And he goes, yeah. And I go, dude, it's 11:15. You have 4 fights left. You're gonna get up, you're not gonna get your main event. And so he goes, oh shit. So he called Jamie over and I go, Jamie, you gotta flip it. And he did, and we got two, the main two, the main and the co-main in, but like Jens's fight with Phil Johns didn't make it, and I don't think Strasser's fight made it.
Yeah, Strasser fought Paul Rodriguez after the main events.
After, because I flipped them because I noticed if not, it would have been a disaster, but no one thinks, that's the thing about I love doing shows and having guys like Chad Bergmeyer who, grew up learning with me and doing well. I like having guys like that around. It just, because you can't see everything. Those guys will notice, hey, I think that back door is open. People are sneaking in, or, hey, I think, I don't think these guys at this table have the right tickets. But even things like pay-per-view or whatever, having experienced guys around, really helped. And in that one, I saved them because they didn't. No one was paying attention.
Yeah, and at this point, amazing work on your part too. Prescient, maybe you figured out, Levine's kind of out of control. Something's going to go wrong here. But you must have had 8 guys on that card. That which means that it wasn't like you were sitting around with an empty plate. You got, a lot of stuff going on there. So, I remember Jens knocked Phil out real fast to kind of end the night. And talk a little bit about Jens, because he just got put into the Hall of Fame. Were you in some way privy to the communications that got him put in the Hall of Fame, or how did that work out? Because obviously he deserves it, but too long in the waiting.
Yeah, yeah. It's a difficult subject right now.
Okay.
I don't. I'm not. I mean, obviously, he deserves to be in there, and I think me walking away with him and the belt back in the day when they wouldn't pay him, it had something to do with that. We went to Japan and made 3 times the money, but they don't. They never forgot, and they kind of held it against him. And at the time, UFC was about done. They were not doing well, and Japan's kicking butt. So it was an easy call on my part from a business, perspective. And but Jens wanted to stay, and we offered. All we wanted to do is be paid the same as the opponent he just fought got paid.
Yeah.
He won the title, defended it 3 times, and all 4 of those guys got more money than him because
Coleman, Dean Thomas.
yeah, Uno and Penn, and
Yeah.
and and that's because when I came on board to manage him, he had already signed the deal. And so I didn't have anything to do with that, and I had to pick up from there. But he definitely deserved to be in. Uh, Brian Butler, who I think was there that introduced him, he kind of led that charge. He's still in the business. It has a lot of guys, some champions, all that stuff. He led that charge for Jens, almost exclusively. I take no credit. I just didn't. I thought me pushing for it would hurt it. To
Yeah,
be honest.
I was going to say maybe that's a spot where you wouldn't be able to help. As weird
Yeah.
as that.
And so I didn't mind that he introduced him. They're really close friends, and he kind of made it happen. So, um, I thought that was cool. Although
Yeah,
it's just the frustrating part is he got entered into the Hall of Fame for his fights. I mean, not
yeah,
for anything. It was for his fighting, and I had a lot to do with the fighting. I mean, I had almost all of them, but I wasn't mentioned, not even in passing.
yeah.
So a little, it is what it is. I'm a grown up. Not everything's going to go your way, and I've certainly given speeches and things like that where I've forgotten people, but yeah, it was kind of bittersweet that here, he's I think he's my 5th in the Hall of Fame, and when they do Robbie, it'd be 6. I don't think anyone's got anywhere close to that. You
Yeah,
know,
no,
in the Hall of Fame, but and someday they'll get Tim in. Tim deserves to be in. He can't. They can say that he fought when there was no one any good. That's the same old Larry Holmes crap. You fight who's there. That's like saying Hoy shouldn't be in there because those guys weren't the level of what they are now. I
yeah.
mean, right? I mean, we saw that. We saw that, but you can't do that. You got to put
Tim
them.
is
You
an
got to look at where
amazing
they are.
Tim is an amazing guy because you know Militich, Shirk, most of the guys. Tim's like Horn in that these guys were probably bullied as kids. They're not the athletic types,
Yeah,
and Tim worked for everything he got. He put the work in, especially people in the gym. They still talk about him today, and he's the biggest guy there. So I think Tim's another guy that what disappointed me about Tim is that he wants to do this slap fighting stuff.
yeah. But that's just Tim. I mean, he loves being in the public eye and stuff like that, and he knows at least he's not trying to do the other crap.
Yeah,
But can you imagine though, um, facing him in that? I mean, I don't know anything about slap fighting. I mean, other than what I saw
yeah,
anyway. But Tim's coming from up here,
yeah,
coming down on these. I mean, that's got to help, right? they're going up. It's just gravity. I mean, helps. And then Tim's hand is like two hands. He's hitting you with a catcher's mitt. I
Yep.
just can't imagine taking too many shots from that guy.
Yeah, no, and to me, the other funny thing is that, this, I call it slapstick. I can't even call it power slap or whatever. So, here there's no real concept of defense, but,
None.
Tim's head might just be a defense on its own. You know what I mean? Because that is just one massive man,
That's a big melon.
Yeah. So yeah, aside from that, I do think Tim's a Hall of Famer because, there are a few things, to come back and fight after having his arm broken the way it was broken, I think it was Mir, right?
Yeah.
And to come back and get back up there and stuff like that, back then was just, I think it's still one of those things that people don't give him enough credit for. That was a pretty ugly break, and the ref mishandled it. And, Tim probably wasn't happy, but Tim, the thing I want to also compliment him on is, he's a country boy, but when the camera was on, like you mentioned it, he knew what it was to be in the limelight. Like you said, he liked it, and
he likes it, yeah.
And he carried himself. He was a proud champion, and I think he was definitely good. The number one guy in the heavyweight division for a time period.
Yeah, when you think about it, he showed up like a 350-pound unathletic guy, and he transitioned himself into this man when he would come out at 265. And here's a guy that's not a super, he wasn't a star in anything, and he kicks Taligman in the head to knock. I mean, who does that at 6'8"? A guy like that. I mean, he was the most flexible and stuff, but yet he couldn't walk straight. You know what I mean? I mean, he had a funny kind of walk, but he could fight, man. I mean, you put him in, he was a gamer. When he was getting ready to fight Rico Rodriguez, well, I'll never forget it. We're sitting, it's me and him and a couple other guys, and Rico's got a whole table of people. He's the champ, and they're looking over and laughing and laughing. And I look over at Tim, and Tim's just glaring at him. He goes, "We'll see how much you laugh when I put my hands on your boy." He goes, "We'll see how much you laugh then." And that's why when he did it, he ran around all, "What's up now? What's up? What now? You still laughing?" I mean, that was a hell of a revenge for him. Them making fun of Tim and pissing him off was not a good deal. That was not a smart way to fight him, because he's a gamer. He didn't want to lose.
Yeah, no back down, and he's the heavyweight champion. He understood that he's got to fight anybody, but he also, like I said, he's a country boy. He kept it simple at times, but at the end of the day, he was sharp to the point where he knew, now's my time to monetize. I won't fight for less than this and this, that sort of stuff. So I think Tim definitely is a groundbreaking guy, in many ways. Even with the strut and the arrogance, that you got to have a little bit of that too,
I mean, my gosh, if you, I mean, do we throw McGregor out? Do we throw? I mean, who don't we throw the Diaz brothers out? Let's talk. If we're gonna toss arrogant people, who's left? Dana's gone. Where are all these? Who do we got left? You got to have something, and he was never overly disrespectful. I mean, some of these other guys I named have been just out and out talking about your mother, your stuff. Tim didn't do that crap. All he did is tell you what he's going to do to you, and most of the time he did.
Yeah. How many pages did you get the book?
Right, just at 400.
400. Amazing.
Well, we had to change the size of the book and make it 7.5 by 10 or something like. We had to make it bigger because we were going to hit 500, and
wow.
It's amazing when you add just a couple inches, you cut off a lot of pages. For those ones that the page just went over by 2 lines, and now it goes back.
Yeah. Now,
I could have real quick. When I started with the book, I was a newspaper editor. For people that don't know, for 18 years, I was a newspaper editor. I went to school, graduated from Ball State with a journalism degree, and worked for newspapers for 18 years. I wrote stories, I edited copy, all that. So I knew
Mhm.
I could do that part of the book. Um, but I didn't really know how to set it up, and I'm actually fairly organized. That's how I can run so many shows and stuff. I'm somewhat cluttered, but organized clutter. I know where things are. I know where I'm headed. I know when I got to do something. And with this, I decided I would make a big list of each year, and I'd write down a story from each year on what I thought was worthwhile in the book. What would be good? What guys do I want to get in to mention? I mean, some of the stories in there aren't as good as others, but I mentioned a couple of people I wanted to mention, that kind of stuff. And so I wrote them all out, 430 stories. Then I had to cut that to 140.
Wow.
That was hard. That took weeks. I
Yeah.
mean, and what I had to look at was, who do I want to read the book? Do I want it just to go to MMA people? I mean, I think the MMA people will love it because it's MMA. It's the original stuff. Um, but I wanted to sell it more. I wanted the stories are good, whether it's MMA or movies or
Yeah.
anything. They're funny and unusual, and so I would have passed that test. I'd take a story that because I know, for example, Strasser. We all know he's funny as hell
Mhm.
and unique. There's only one, Powder and Strasser. Those are
Yeah.
just, never seen them, together, but those two. And so I can tell a story that Strasser, something he did, and it makes me laugh. And MMA people, you would laugh. But if you're a person off the street that said, I'm going to try this, you won't get it. If you don't know Strasser, you don't get it. And
Yeah.
so I had to eliminate. And that got rid of maybe 100 of them. And so now I still had another 150 that I just had to choose between. And some of it I would say this story's better than that one, but I've already mentioned Matt Hughes five times, and he has his own chapter. I gotta put this guy in,
Yeah.
and those things, and it definitely, some of them were how I was feeling at the time. If I'm not happy with somebody, I'm not going to I can't say not intentionally. There are a couple of zingers in there that I wanted to put in, but for the most part, it's 95% positive. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, we're at a point right now where Pat Miletich and I don't talk. We don't talk, and that was his choice, but that's fine. I still didn't do. If you read the book, you'd think we're still best friends, because without him, I couldn't have done any of this stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I always thought I've said this before, but my thing with Pat was, I always felt like I knew without Pat, I couldn't have done what I did, but I never felt like Pat felt the same way. That he didn't feel that without me, he might not have accomplished everything he did, because I
Yeah.
worked pretty hard to get his stuff and his career and those type of things. But that's everyone. That's your own opinion and stuff. And so I still tried to treat everybody. All my champions got a chapter to their own. And that was, and then I did a couple guys. Jeremy Horn got a chapter. Jennifer Howell got a chapter, and some of these, the champions all got a chapter that it's all the entire chapter is them. The other ones would be the lead and get maybe the first 5 pages, and then the last three are something else. But
Mhm.
I tried to take the key ones and make them a chapter. I At the very end, I decided to make Joel Gold a chapter. And that was one you talked about before. Who, in talking about this, and I thought, man, that guy was huge. I mean, he certainly helped us.
Yeah.
All our guys wore his stuff. He gave us a lot of publicity, and and I thought, you know what, I'm almost done. And I tell Keith, I'm gonna do a new chapter. And Keith was who? And I tell him that, and he goes, "Okay, he deserves it."
Yeah,
You know,
no, for sure.
and
Were you on the America Online boards back in the early days? You were Fight Iowa, weren't you?
yeah,
Yeah, he was Band Dog 7. I don't know if you
yeah, Band
remember.
Dog 7. Oh yeah, yeah.
So, so yeah, for sure.
Who was the guy from Georgia that put out the little tiny little flyer on MMA and results and stuff, and they would send it around. This was in uh 96, 97.
Could
He
it be
that was
Cal
where
Cooper?
I'm sorry. I
Cal
don't think
Cooper?
it was Cal. I don't think so. And
Frank Bishop?
I'm gonna find out because I want to know because I used to yeah he gave me a free subscription to send which I don't know it's just tiny but to send in results and I'm like I'm sending results I want my stuff out there
Yeah,
but he was the first kind of thing I ever got that man I'd scour that on the results and then of course Joel came along with the paper and at every UFC it was a mad rush to grab a paper
yeah,
and see what he put in there. So
for sure.
um,
You know what's funny? We didn't know each other until, we ran across each other in the business, but we grew up about 20 blocks from each other in New York. He's from
really,
Washington. Yeah, he was on 179th Street and I was on 153rd. So like, with the crowded city, we're in different schools and stuff. We never ran across each other, but we were literally just a few miles growing up.
so
Um,
just 3 hours of driving.
yeah, exactly. And the Full Contact Fighter magazine too. Or newspaper, as it more properly
Right.
is called. Yeah, I think that's one of the first really big. He was, like you said, a sponsor, and when you got the first one, and it was like 8 pages. By the time you're starting to progress through the years, he put a lot of labor and love into that.
Yeah,
And
he did.
there was a lot of times where people say, "Oh, you can get your news from Black Belt magazine." Inside Karate. Those guys didn't cover the sport. You know,
You'd open it up, and the centerpiece is Hoist beats Severn. It's like 3 years ago.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it wasn't the same. No, Joe was within a month, and a lot of times he would leave openings and nail stuff from the week before. Very
Yeah,
very good. And he got his. Keith Mills said, Keith put in all my photos and stuff, and great photographer. But he's a photographer, not really a writer. And he became a writer when DeFazio, the editor, said, pictures come with stories, or
yeah,
or else. And so, that's how it all kind of started. Was
yeah.
he,
Joel was a guy too that, I mean, he put in his work, octagon side with his camera himself. A lot of the early pictures he took himself. Maybe
yeah,
throughout.
yeah,
And so yeah, no, I think that's a great ad. Someone like him, Joe Silva. We've discussed a lot of people. I'm going to ask you to close. Look, you said you had 120 something, 125 stories in the book, so we want people to read it. But maybe give us one that sticks out that you would throw out there and let people know, kind of as a tease to make them want to buy the book. Give us one that's kind of comes to mind.
well, I mean, let's do one with Tom Sauer since I didn't really get to talk about him. I feel better. We Tom was a guy that didn't need a corner man. He just he fought his way. He was rough. He was tough and mean, and didn't really need a corner. Needed someone to hand him water, make sure his shoes didn't get stolen, and make sure he got paid. Kind of like Jeremy Horn. We the two of us traveled. So
Well,
we
to add to Tom's mystique as a kind of loner is not the right word, because he would help you build the cage,
yeah,
help you take the
yeah,
cage apart, even if he was fighting and stuff like that. He was just, kind of in tune with the whole sport. You could tell he loved it.
he did. And guy had 9 kids. I mean, it's
Wow, that's a
yeah,
lot of responsibilities,
yeah,
huh?
he had them all at the house, and they weren't all. I think I hate to get it wrong, but I think 6 were his. and 3 were from his third marriage, I think. But I mean, he took care of all of them and did just such a great dad. Loved being with his family and stuff like that. One thing I will say that I couldn't really say before, in doing the book, I called him a month before he died, and we talked for 5 hours. I legitimately 5 hours, laughed our asses off. Just my God, the funny stuff, and then, because I wanted to do something for him in the book, and then when he passed, I was like, oh, thank goodness, that I talked to him.
Yeah.
For I have that, and that's when I decided to give him more of a chapter and stuff like that, just because he was such a cool guy.
Yeah.
He didn't let Tourette's hold him back or any of that stuff. I mean, of course, he was big enough that no one really said anything,
Yeah.
about it. But so he was an EMT for the fire department.
Right. I
And
was going to say it's not like he was just a total, affected by he held down a
oh,
precision job with responsibility.
and when he focused, the Tourette's went away. So like if he's stitching or he's doing something, it's okay. It's when he's sitting with you and he's relaxed, he's comfortable with you. Then he starts chirping out cuss words and derogatory names and stuff, and you start going, "Oh my God, I'm gonna die." And
Yeah.
but that Holland fight we mentioned, he was the last guy, and Holland they had to have 7 doctors there, and Tim or I mean Tom, he got a bad cut. I mean, it was gnarly. It went over the eye and then a good 2 inches down, and I mean it was like his whole eye could be flapping, and so when he got done, helped him back to the locker room, sent him down, and everything, and looked at it. He goes, "Bonnie," he goes, "Go get a doctor." And so I went out there, and nobody's there. They all hightailed it, and I come back and I go, "Tom, they're all gone." And he goes, "Shit." He goes, "Monty," he goes, "You're gonna have to sew this." I'm so afraid of needles. I mean, there's no chance. I can't. If I had to sew my own finger or die, I'm a dead man. That's not me. And the look I gave him, he goes, he goes, "All right." He goes, "I'll do it myself." And he gets in his thing and pulls out his suture kit. He's looking at it's a locker, and you open the locker and you got the mirror there, and it's cracked and all the typical. He's looking in this thing and sewing his face back together. And I told him, I go, "Good God," I go, you're like friggin' Rambo, dude." I mean, it's just, oh my God. And he goes, "Damn it." And I go, "What's what?" And he goes, "Al," he goes, "It's different. So in the mirror, it's backwards." And
Yeah.
so, I'm like, I can't even watch or anything. But that was how tough, Tom was. He just, he could get pounded and everything and just sew himself up and let's go.
Yep. Yep.
Just
For sure.
a real pleasure, to be around. He really
For sure.
was.
Monty, always a real pleasure to talk to you and, catch up. We can always talk for hours and talk, about this year or that year and just get stuck there. So it was good to meander around and let people know the depth of what you're bringing in the history, the full Monty. Well worth every MMA fan and maybe just, general storytelling because the guys that we're talking about here are, usually alphas and, very interesting characters. So
Well,
I'm sure.
hopefully
Yeah.
people will read the book, and I think I'd like to get it out there. So far, I've done no advertising, and I kind of it's on Amazon, so people can get it there, but they take 60% there.
Yeah.
So I've been taking what I call low hanging fruit. The people I know will buy from me, and I've ordered 300, and so we're in that neighborhood of selling, and
Okay,
pretty
cool.
good for only 6 weeks. But just getting the word out that you can get them, and if they do it with me like through Venmo or PayPal, I'll sign them. I've signed, 200, 200 plus books already. And although it doesn't mean much, I find it kind of funny, signing, like I am Mark Twain or
Mhm.
Samuel Clemens, but people seem to really like it, like to just say a little word, and especially since a lot of these, if they come in and I know them, like they
Yeah.
fought for me, or someone, Chad Bergmeyer, I write a little more, something personal and all that. So, I hope people like it. I'd like to get it out and give it a chance and see if see if I can make some people laugh.
Yeah, I think it's definitely you put in a labor of love. Now it's time to enjoy the fruits. Get it out there. Let people tell the stories. Some of the stories people know, and I'm sure that in 125 it's jam packed with surprising, like you said, different angles and things. So I'm looking forward to it. Everybody else out there, grab a hold of it. I'll put the Amazon link here for him, and he'll send me your Venmo stuff and things like that. I'll put that in there as well.
Okay, sounds good. You have a picture of the book and